The months of copium are finally paying off. The updated roadmap for Last Epoch and what's coming in Season 2 are in full view for all to see. If you've been waiting for some more in-game content, dungeon improvements, and new faction mechanics, you are in for a treat. The developers at 11th Hour Games have indeed been listening to feedback, and Season 2 is definitely focused on three core pillars: that of expanding in-game content, enhancing new player experiences, and finally refining performance, dungeons, and balance. Most of all, expect to see the best of Diablo and Path of Exile improvements in this release. Now, I don't mean any disrespect here. In fact, the reason I find Last Epoch to be more appealing than both of the previously mentioned titles is because I've always felt it to be the love child that was born with only the best qualities from them both. This is not to say Last Epoch isn't a unique gem. It is for sure, but it is without a doubt a prime example of a studio which waits for the big ballers to release and then say, let's merge those great ideas to compete and make a great game. And to ensure the competitive nature of this channel, please remember to like and subscribe, because there is always going to be more enjoyable content up ahead. Now, Last Epoch will be introducing tombs and cemeteries to our experience in the Monolith of Echoes. These are basically described as eerie new side zones that can be randomly encountered. These areas add a new layer of mid-gameplay decision making, offering fresh challenges and unique rewards to enhance the in-game experience. This runs pretty much parallel to D4's Nightmare Dungeons and Helltide Zones. For example, Nightmare Dungeons in Diablo 4 introduce modified versions of existing dungeons with special affixes, stronger enemies, and increased rewards. So, like Epoch's tombs and cemeteries, these dungeons add an extra layer of challenge and decision making to the in-game content. Now, sticking to the same concept of Helltide events, these are also randomly occurring open world zones featuring elite enemies, secret areas, and currency used to unlock valuable loot caches. Similarly, this is what Last Epoch's tombs and cemeteries are going for: this unexpected encounter with monoliths, adding an element of surprise and exploration. Now, on the same note, PoE 2 has side areas and map mods just the same. So if you think about side areas on the maps, for example, they occasionally contain hidden side areas filled with extra loot, challenges, or lore elements. Last Epoch's tomb and cemetery functionality will more than likely be very similar to this, providing additional encounters within this system. These are things that I think are running parallel to this concept, because the ability to customize and interact with additional side content is the key feature of Path of Exile's in-game. Now, Last Epoch is also bringing a brand new echo type called Woven Echoes, which will be introduced, offering players a unique glimpse into the mysterious influence of the Weaver. While her presence has been known through the namesake items in previous updates, Season 2 will mark the first time her power truly manifests within the world of Eterra. Now, Woven Echoes will function as a distinctive variation of Echo encounters within the Monolith of Fate, adding new challenges, fresh mechanics, and exclusive rewards that have never been seen before. These Echoes are designed to expand in-game variety and provide more meaningful choices for players as they are progressing through this Monolith system. While details are still kind of emerging of this, Woven Echoes appear to be directly tied to the Weaver's faction tree, which will allow players to augment the Monolith timelines in certain ways to get different outcomes. These echoes may also feature unique enemy types, environmental storytelling, and special objectives, deepening the lore surrounding the Weaver and her connection to Eterra's fate. Now, I hate to do this, but in Path of Exile 2, the Atlas passive tree allows players to manipulate and augment their in-game experience in the Atlas of Worlds as well. Players can specialize in different types of encounters, making certain league mechanics appear more often or modifying how maps are behaving. Additionally, past mechanics like the Ultimatum and PoE 1 introduced risk-reward challenges challenges where players face progressively harder enemies in exchange for escalating rewards. So, if Woven Echoes allow players to shape their monolith encounters through the Weaver faction tree, this could be similar to what PoE's Atlas passive tree is, letting players specialize their in-game experience. If Woven Echoes feature special escalating fights or decision-making mechanics, they may also have elements similar to PoE's Ultimatum encounters. Overall, Woven Echoes appears to introduce a unique, lore-driven in-game feature to Last Epoch, while borrowing the elements once again from other ARPG in-game mechanics to create new layers of challenge, customization, and rewards. Now, Season 2's update is also bringing with it champion enemies, which are being introduced as a way to shake up Monolith Echo encounters with powerful, high-threat adversaries that are going to be demanding greater skill and strategy to overcome. Now, I'm sure these enemies are going to be significantly stronger than standard rares and elites, and they will probably be bringing new challenges and rewards to the endgame. The champion enemies are obviously going to be a new tier of enhanced foes found within these Monolith Echoes, and unlike typical rare enemies, these adversaries are more than likely coming with unique mechanics and modifiers that make them more dangerous. Also probably increase durability and power, ensuring that they stand out as mini bosses in the Echoes, because you don't want to have things that are even remotely similar to each other in those kind of streams. Greater rewards are probably going to be dropping, making them a high risk, high reward addition to in-game content, and they will probably be impacting these Monolith Echoes by appearing as natural escalations of difficulty inside of them, breaking up the usual enemy patterns with encounters that are requiring quick decision making and skillful play. They are designed to more than likely just challenge everybody's optimized builds, forcing players to kind of adapt on the fly. You can probably expect from them greater experience gains, improved item drops with potentially unique properties tied to the encounters. Possible monolith-specific rewards also are probably going to be encouraging players to engage with them whenever they appear. Now, these enemies remind me a lot of Diablo 4's elites and Nightmare Dungeon bosses. Basically, champion enemies are somewhat similar to the empowered elites found in Nightmare Dungeons, offering tougher fights with more rewarding loot. And if you go with the Path of Exile 2 examples, you can think of things like Arch Nemesis and map boss mods. If champion enemies have random modifiers, they could resemble PoE's Arch Nemesis system, where enemies have unique buffs that change how they fight. Champion enemies also aim to kind of make Last Epoch's Monolith Echoes more dynamic and unpredictable, so this is going to ensure that players stay engaged with ever-evolving challenges. So prepare for intense fights, strategic battles, and greater rewards when Season 2 does arrive. Dungeon key charms are also going to be a brand new feature, and they are going to specifically be enhancing dungeon gameplay by allowing players to modify their dungeon runs with unique effects. These charms attach to dungeon keys, altering how the dungeon plays out and providing new challenging rewards and mechanics to explore. Now, if you can't already start seeing the parallels, don't worry, I'll make sure to explain them out once we get there, but this is obviously a direct pull from our previously big titles. But first, let's just talk about how these dungeon keys are going to be working, because players will apply dungeon key charms to their keys before entering the dungeon. This is going to modify the dungeon encounters, and it will introduce the mechanics, the enemies, loot changes, or difficulty modifiers to make the dungeon runs more engaging. Some charms are probably going to increase loot or special crafting opportunities or additional experience gains in exchange for tougher encounters. With the dungeon key charms, dungeons will no longer be static experiences. Instead, players can tailor their runs to fit their goals, whether that's taking on greater challenges for better rewards or tweaking dungeon mechanics to align with their build strengths. Now, In Diablo 4, Nightmare Sigils modify those dungeons by adding difficulty layers, new affixes, and increased rewards. The dungeon key charms could function similarly, in fact I think they are functioning exactly like that, by letting players influence how the dungeons are going to be playing out. And I mean, obviously in Path of Exile, players are modifying maps with various crafting methods, including currency items, scarabs, sextants, all these different things. So these dungeon key charms are more or less kind of a spin-off from this type of concept, but maybe not as detailed as what Path of Exile puts for its maps. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. One of the more exciting quality of life updates coming with Season 2, for me at least, is that long-awaited keyboard movement option. This feature, which has been a heavily requested addition by the community, is going to be giving players an alternative to traditional click and move controls, allowing for a more fluid and action-oriented gameplay experience. So, I mean, players will be able to move their characters using the WASD keys, making movement feel more intuitive and responsive. And this option is going to particularly benefit ranged and spellcasting builds, as it's going to allow them to kite easier and position themselves during combat. Now, if you like the point and click, don't worry, because it will be coexisting with the WASD movement system, giving players that flexibility to choose the control scheme that is best suiting their playstyle. Now, once again, if this sounds familiar, that's because Path of Exile 2 introduced WASD movement as one of its core gameplay innovations whenever it was released. Grinding Gear Games showcased how this modernized control system improves movement fluidity and combat responsiveness, making PoE2 feel more like an action RPG than ever before. Now, Last Epoch is following suit, and it's a fantastic addition. ARPGs have long been bound to the boring click-to-move mechanics, but the industry is evolving. By integrating WASD movement, Last Epoch is definitely giving players that best of both worlds: classic ARPG controls for those who prefer them, and a more action-oriented movement system for those who want that greater control in combat. So with this new option, Last Epoch is making gameplay way smoother, more dynamic, and more accessible to a broader range of players, setting a new standard for how this game will be sitting in the ARPG realm. Now, there is a large amount of other quality of life improvements that are being displayed here, but since they haven't really explained in detail what any of these actually are going to be, they've just said we are going to do it, I didn't really report that in this segment because I would rather wait until more news and information is dropped so that I can give you a clearer picture of what, for example, UI enhancements or storage changes are actually going to look like, as well as these new unique items and different affixes. You never know until the game launches, so once we have our hands on it, it'll be more relevant to be reported to you there. So now for the big news, Last Epoch Season 2 is officially launching April 2025. While this is a bit later than originally anticipated by like months, the team is committed to delivering a polished experience, addressing feedback, and ensuring this season is going to be as solid as possible. And of course, with all of those great games that they were able to pull the best parts out of, I think this is going to make the experience a guaranteed positive ending. Over the next few months, we'll see deep dives and blog posts as well as behind the scene looks at these features, so let's just take our time and wait for them to be released properly. We can't wait to see the theories that all of you are coming up with. I mean, what are you most excited for? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Last Epoch updates. And guys, I'm going to see you in Season 2.